Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to make a bodice with an interfacing lining. This video is made to be an extra guide for our sewing pattern Alba summer dress from Cocodoco Design. However, the same technique can be applied to any other pattern that the burrito method is suitable for. The burrito method is used to make garments look as neat and tidy on the inside as on the outside of a garment. All the stitches will be covered by a nice lining. The method can at first be a bit intimidating, but it is actually not as hard as it can seem at first. The starting point for this video is that both shoulder seams for the bodice front and back piece has been sewn together. The same procedure has been done with the lining as well. Also, the outer fabric and the lining has been sewn together at the neckline with the seam on the back side of the fabric. So now when we have clarified that, we will get started with the burrito method. Begin dividing the outer fabric with the lining by folding the lining to the middle of the bodice. Make sure your outer fabric is flat and neat. Turn the garment so the opposite armhole is facing you. Now you should roll the garment, both the lining and the outer fabric, in a tight tube, like a burrito. The tube should be pretty tight. If you make it too loose, it will be hard to avoid sewing in the roll later on. Now, when you have rolled the tube as far as you meet the lining you folded earlier, it's time to pick it up and turn it over the tube. The tube should be between the outer fabric and the lining. Be careful when you line up the fabric and make sure your tube will not be stuck between the needles when you start to pin the armhole. Make sure that your shoulder seams on the lining and the outer fabric is lining up perfectly. I prefer to glue the seams with the glue that disappears when washing and to pin it on as well to make sure that the seams will not move later on. If you have notches on the armholes, like the Alba summer dress has, make sure that they will line up and pin it. Now I will pin the rest of the armhole before I sew it in place. I place the pins quite tight, and that's because I noticed that the fabric I used for this garment is quite stretchy for a woven fabric, and it's easy to lose shape. If you don't use this type of fabric, you can have a larger distance between the pins than I have. Now that the armhole is pinned, it's time to sew. For woven fabrics like this, I will use a regular straight stitch, but if you use jersey fabric, you will need an elastic stitch. Trim the seam allowance to 5 mm. This will make the seam look a bit cleaner after you have turned the fabric. Now it's time to reveal the result of the first armhole. You turn your garment by open up the bottom of the tube and grab the rolled tube and gently drag it out. Press the seam on the outside of the garment to both make the seam a bit more durable and the garment will look a lot better as well. Make sure that you have the correct heat on the iron for the type of fabric you use. Make sure that your seam is placed correctly before pressing the garment. It is worth taking some extra time for this. Do the same to the other armhole as well before proceeding to the next step. And after both the armholes is sewn, it is time to sew the side seam for the bodice. Place the bodice flat on the table. Divide again the outer fabric and the lining, but this time at the front piece of the bodice. Take now the back piece on the same side and divide the outer fabric and the lining as well and place it on top of the front bodice piece side seams. Outer fabric should line up with outer fabric and the lining should be lined up with each other. I use my glue pen here at the armhole seams as well, so it will be lined up perfectly before I continue pinning the rest of the side seam. Sew the side seam together with a straight stitch. I also use a serger to finish off the edge of the fabric to make sure that the fabric will not fray. The serger stitch will not replace the straight stitch that I just sewed, so make sure that you don't destroy the seam. However, this step is not necessary, so if you don't own a serger, you can skip it. Turn the garment so the right side is facing out. Press the side seams, and now the burrito method is done. All the seams are closed in the garment and the inside will look just as nice and tidy as the outside.